Welcome to M Go Bucks. We are here on a huge, massive weekend, Matt. We are talking about Ohio State versus Penn State. Michigan hosts Oregon, which should probably be a little bit, unfortunately, disappointing for me. But yeah, Ohio State, man, that's the question. That's right now. You got a top 5 matchup between Ryan Day and James Franklin, and I put the headline in all this is Ryan Day cooked if he loses to James Franklin. Put that in the chat for everyone. Definitely want to hear from everyone about that. But Matt, how's it going with you? How are you planning the apocalypse if Ohio State loses this weekend? The Buckeye apocalypse.
I mean, honestly, the weird thing is, as many problems as we have, and as many concerns as I have about our team, I guess I can't really get it in my head. I haven't really wrapped the idea around my mind that we could lose to Penn State, even though they're an undefeated team. It's still like Ohio State and Michigan never lose to Penn State unless it's like a crazy fluke with a field goal block return for a touchdown. I mean, it doesn't even matter. Like, I don't know. I have zero faith, especially like maybe if it was a night game in the whiteout, I would be a little more concerned because that's a tough game, a tough environment to play in, probably the hardest in the country. But yeah, I don't know. I just think that even if we have a bad game, like James Franklin will screw something up at the end and we'll win. I mean, honestly,
full faith in James Franklin to screw this
up.
Yeah,
it's more.
Me too.
Faith in James Franklin than faith in Ryan Day at this point. Like it's just I just have.
Franklin you got to see it. You got to see it, right?
I mean, the other big thing is Ohio State historically has just destroyed Penn State with our receivers. And, it's just whether it's Olave or Marvin Harrison or, any receiver. I mean, every receiver we have is a stud. And certain teams, slower receivers down a little better than others, but not Penn State.
Not Penn State.
Their defense is good, but it's not. They haven't really faced anyone yet, and I just. And that's just assuming that our running game doesn't improve, which it can't be any worse than it was against Nebraska. And I think one of the big reasons why it wasn't good against Nebraska is because I think that defensive coordinators on teams that we're playing that aren't really good teams are going to know that we're not going to be doing the option run with Will Howard because we don't want to risk him getting injured unless it's a big game where we have to do that, So they didn't. They didn't bring that out until the end of the Nebraska game when we needed a touchdown to win. And Urban Meyer's like, you need to run it 17 to 20 times the quarterback in his preview today. Obviously we don't need to run it that many times, but just the threat of 5 or 6 runs from the quarterback and doing a good job of it will open up the run game. And then also, I don't understand against Nebraska why. I mean, it seems like they were just stubbornly trying to practice the run game. I mean, we were getting like 2.5 to 2.9 yards a carry, depending on the running back. Meanwhile, we're throwing for 13 yards a pass, 13 to 16 for like 220 yards and like 2 or 3 touchdowns. So we could do whatever we wanted throwing the ball. It's just I feel like they were just stubborn and wanted to work on the run because we had new linemen.
That's pretty huge ego if you're practicing the run against Nebraska.
Yeah,
even though they lose to Indiana. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the idea of Ohio State losing to Penn State is impossible, but it's so possible. I mean, it's at Penn State. There's going to be a roaring crowd. Ohio State has offensive line issues. In my brain, I can't comprehend it. But let's talk about what happens if it did, though. I mean, this is a huge, huge game for Ryan Day because it's not a game he can really lose. If they lose, they won't even go. Not only will they not win the Big Ten championship, they won't even go to the Big Ten championship game.
But again, that doesn't really.
I mean, they have 2 losses.
I mean, that's like
the playoffs. It doesn't.
Yeah.
But it will be sky falling like crazy, and everyone will be calling for Ryan Day's head at that point because think about they've paid $20 million for the roster. They've brought in Chip Kelly as coach. And now we got to look back and who was it? I know it was Urban Meyer and what's his name? We had conspiracy theories about this early in the beginning of the season. Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer both came out and said, "Oh, this is the most talented Ohio State roster we've ever seen, probably in history." Basically setting up Ryan Day for, like, if he loses a game, he's in the hot seat.
For starters only. It's not a bad take. It's just our left tackle was so good. Like, we had a first round left tackle that went down with injury, and now you look, is like when that happened, our offense was destroying Oregon running the ball, and as soon as he went out, like, our running game went down the tubes. And then the offense in general just sort of went down the tubes. So, and then we couldn't get it back even against Nebraska. So, losing the left tackle has just been an absolute disaster for this team. And then also the tight end, Will Kazmarek, the transfer from OU, was the best blocking tight end. So we lose two of our better blockers on the line. Like, he didn't do anything in the receiving game, but those two together blocking were great. So we're losing two of our best blockers in one game in the Oregon game. So that's just something that we can't replace. We don't have anyone that can jump in at left tackle that's going to be at his level.
It's a little rough. But you know what we're going to learn, though, in this game is Drew Aller actually gotten better since last year? Because if you remember, he played okay in every game except against Michigan and Ohio State. But in those two games, he looked terrible. Like couldn't complete easy passes.
That's another reason why I'm not too worried. I don't think Drew Aller is good. My bigger concern is their backup, because he's athletic and he's actually really good. So they announced that Drew Aller would be starting and was going to be good to go in the game. But my concern is that he's a little bit rusty or something, or the knee injury is kind of bad. So either they rotate him with the other guy, or he just eventually steps out and the other guy comes in. So I'm much more concerned about the athletic running quarterback, because even against Marshall's not good, but they had a running quarterback who gave us fits. So, obviously I'm more concerned about that. So you have a running quarterback, and then you have two running backs that are good, and then you have a tight end that's good. So those are all things that we, are probably going to have problems with. Really the tight end and who's a superstar, and then the running quarterback are the only things I'd be worried about. The receivers are garbage.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. It's absolutely wild that you are dreading for the backup quarterback to come in. It's just
because it's just like I look at Drew Aller like I look at
these games.
Yeah, I look at him like I look at James Franklin almost. They're just not going to do anything.
Yeah, that's too funny. James, we'll get to that at some point, and I hope it's in a couple weeks. The team,
Well, it is in a few weeks.
Is it really? I haven't watched or paid attention to that.
Yeah, I remember like a week ago it was like 30 days. So I think you're about 3 weeks away, and then the NCAA response time would be December 23rd. So.
Yeah, maybe we'll find out, but I'm not super concerned about that. Funny, James, another James. Well, a Michigan guy here. Maybe I won't get kicked for saying hi. I like other OSU channels. Hey, I do too. I like other OSU channels too. I really like Buckeye Huddle. Who's that guy? What's that guy's name? Tony Gerdeman. I love that dude.
James
Michigan Monday article back in the day, and I that was my favorite article to actually read.
Which channels have been kicking you out?
Yeah, what the
because
heck?
I would be interested in that. I love it's I think it's more fun to talk to opposing fans than Buckeye fans. It's, you get the opposing view and then argue with other fans.
You have to be pretty obnoxious to get kicked off the channels. I'd love to see what you were actually posting. Just out of pure enjoyment. Yeah, apologies. I do have excuse me. I have a real cold. I get made fun of by Jason all the time for having throat herpes because I have just like a perpetual cough, it seems like. But today I have actually a real cold. But yeah, for sure. And Bjork will fire Day, regardless of how the rest of the college football thinks. Yeah. No, I don't think they're going to fire Day either. That's kind of a pipe dream, but I don't know. He doesn't look Ryan Day doesn't ever look very happy to me. He doesn't look like he's happy in this job.
Well, Urban Meyer didn't look happy either.
We'll see.
I mean, show me Nick Saban wasn't happy. No, college football coaches are never happy. Show me a happy coach, and I'll show you someone who's 6-6. Like they're never happy. But
if they're happy, that's a problem.
So you wanted to talk about like the scenario. So first of all, like I'm going to say like what I think that the pressure would be really bad if he loses a couple more games. To get fired though, he's going to have to lose. It doesn't really matter which ones, but he would have to lose the Michigan game. He would probably have to lose this one, Indiana and Michigan, and then not make the playoffs. I think that might actually be almost enough to get him fired. But what I think is, the more realistic bad scenario would be just either losing one or two more games and then making the playoffs and then like losing the first round or something. I mean, that would put him on the hot seat and I don't know.
Well, if they lose to Penn State, first of all, that's a sign that you just lost to James Franklin. That's embarrassing. And that's a sign that we just spent $20 million on a roster so we could go lose to James Franklin. That would be devastating in itself. But then at the same time, like you just said, they might go in and they're going to have to play someone difficult. You're going to be low. You probably still make the playoffs, the Buckeyes, if they win out if they lost.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at the past.
They would be really far behind. They would be playing a really good team in the playoffs for the very first round. Yeah, I think if I'm doing the math right.
Mm-hmm.
So they could very well lose. I mean, if they can lose to James Franklin, they could very well lose to a Georgia, or Oregon again. I don't think they would put them against Oregon again, but some other top team. I mean, geez.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised. I saw the spread against Indiana. We're like we would be 13-point favorites or something against them, which kind of surprised me because to me, Indiana is the bigger threat than Penn State because they actually have a good passing game, whereas Penn State doesn't.
Come on, Indiana. I mean, they're good, but
they're destroying everybody. They have been winning every single game. They've never been behind even for 1 second during any
who have they played?
Season. Well, their biggest wins were, I guess, I think Washington and Nebraska or something.
Yeah, okay.
I mean,
there you go. Once they play Ohio State, they'll come down to earth.
But like Nebraska has a top 20 defense, and they put up 55 on them or 57 on them. I mean, that's not like a bad Nebraska defense, and they made them look ridiculous. I mean, granted, some of those were interceptions from the Nebraska offense that were getting returned for touchdowns, but so it wasn't all on their defense. But I mean, they completely. I mean, that's just one game though. I mean, you look at like all. I know you can't use transitive properties except for when you're comparing how everyone does against the teams they play, right? So let's say, like if you're comparing Ohio State and Michigan, and you say, well, we have two common opponents, and Ohio State did better against those two opponents. So it doesn't really matter because a lot of it's could be matchups, like it could be a passing team or a running team. And it depends on what you're better against. But if you look at, even when Indiana plays bad teams like UCLA, I mean, they beat UCLA worse than anyone else has. They beat Nebraska worse than anyone else has. I mean, they're getting these wins against teams that other top teams like LSU have played, and they're beating them worse. So I mean, all you can do is go by what they've done. I mean, really, their only bad win on the year was probably giving up 24 points to Northwestern. So that's a little egregious, but they still beat them by like 17 points.
Yeah, I mean, Indiana's definitely doing good this year. I don't want to take anything away from them, but still, I'll believe it when I see it. They still haven't really played anyone, but by Indiana standards, they have. By Indiana standards, they have played someone.
The Michigan State game will be good this weekend because they're playing better now. I mean,
are they playing Michigan State? That might
be that'll be a good one. Yeah. But
I'm going to need something to flip to when I'm watching the Oregon game. So hopefully,
okay, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what we think is actually going to happen in the Penn State game, not the whether.
Yeah, I think that Ohio State's going to win the game. I think that their offensive line is going to be an issue, and they'll probably get hit up by Penn State's defense. Defense, man, they're fast. They're going to pressure the quarterback. I would worry about. Like, this is the game that I was thinking. This is one of the games I was thinking, oh, gosh, Will Howard might do something boneheaded. It's this type of game. And against Oregon, he looked really good against Oregon. He just had that boneheaded last drive, really, where he made some dumb plays, let the clock run out. But This is the one I was kind of thinking, oh, I could see, before the season, before Will Howard was doing good, I was thinking I could see a pick 6 or 2 from Will Howard. That's kind of what
he almost had
I
one
don't
against
know
Nebraska.
happen this year anymore. I mean, that's kind of left my mind. But I think Ohio State's going to win just because of the James Franklin effect. I'm like you. I can't actually fathom James Franklin pulling it out even at home. And it's not even a night game. It's not even a whiteout. Granted, it's still going to be really freaking loud, and your offensive line is going to have a really hard time communicating. There's going to be some boneheaded penalties, false starts, that kind of thing, probably, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
But I still see Ohio State just having too much offense and too much. And I think I even heard some other people talking about it. Like, I was thinking last year when you had Marvin Harrison Jr. just kind of took over that Penn State game, something's probably going to happen like that again, but maybe it'll be more of like a combination of Emeka and Jeremiah Smith. I just kind of see that happening. I don't see Penn State being able to put up enough offense to actually beat Ohio State. Could be wrong though. I mean, is that kind of how you're seeing it too?
I mean, I think there's a decent possibility that we actually boat race them, because I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of respect for Penn State, even though like we've had some close games with them, including last year. It's just, I mean, aside from, so I think what's going to happen is we're probably going to be moving Donovan Jackson, our left guard, to left tackle, and then
that sounds like a disaster. I mean, maybe it'll work out, but it sounds like
he's the most experienced and highest rated offensive lineman you have. I think that he's going to move to left tackle. Then Carson Hinsman, our center from last year, has had a whole year of experience but hasn't done anything this year, is going to potentially be our left guard. And so that's how that's going to work out. And then, they can always have the running backs and the tight ends help block on the left tackle, or they can do things where they're going to be, sprinting the quarterback out and getting him out of the pocket, so it's not as big of an issue. So there's lots of things you can do to get around having a particular weakness, and that's if
big weakness.
And that's if the left tackle isn't doing well. And I mean, really against Nebraska, the bigger issue was the running game, more so. But I think the one thing that I've really liked about our team this year has been the play calling has been unbelievable until the Nebraska game. So I don't know what happened in that game, because our run game, one of the big reasons it's been so good is we've been doing so many RPOs this year, and sprinting Howard out and just he's been running a decent amount, and just everything has just been clicking. And then they just did this really vanilla run game against Nebraska that just wasn't working, and I don't know what the deal was. And
it's the offensive line. It's got to be. I mean, the running
back. The play calling. They weren't doing anything. They weren't doing anything interesting. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they still should.
You watch it. It's just like run up the middle. Like they didn't do anything. Like they had. If you watched all the other games this year, I mean, they were doing all sorts of crazy shit with
so what do you think is the key to the game on offense for Ohio State? Like, what are you looking at and being like, hey, we're going to win if this happens on offense?
Well, I mean, if we can get the running game going, then I think it's going to be a blowout. So to get the run game going, I think you have to Howard has to actually get some effective pulls and take it and be a threat running the ball. And if he can do that, I think not only will we win, but I think we're going to win by multiple scores. If we aren't able to run the ball well, I still think we can win because our passing game has too many weapons, and someone's eventually going to get open and make a big play. So that's what's going to come down to. Like, really, that's why I think the number one key is just Howard running.
Fix the O-line.
Well, James,
too. If they can pass protect, I think that's what it comes down to for me, is getting those receivers going. Because if they can pass protect, then I think Ryan Day is going to have them run it. I mean, I think they're going to be really good. I think it might be a blowout if they can actually do that. It's just a big if. I think that's probably the key to the game on offense, as far as what I could tell. But as far as on defense, we've talked a lot about the offense. How about defense? What's your key there?
Finding out who you're going to put on their stud tight end to slow them down, because That was my big concern. I remember the last time we faced a tight end this good was probably in 2002 in the national title game, having Miami's tight end who was
Helen Winslow Jr.
Yeah, that guy was, the last time we faced a truly elite tight end like this.
No, I don't think this guy's Kellen Winslow Jr., but
I mean, he's supposed to be a first rounder, so
we'll find out.
Not as good as Winslow probably, but I mean, the guy is setting records. I mean, he had like 17 catches for 200 yards last week. That's absurd.
But that was against
2 weeks ago.
USC, right?
Yeah, that was 2 weeks
ago. USC just, I think, stopped covering.
So he's unbelievable. But so basically, my plan is, you either get a really athletic linebacker that can actually somehow cover him, or you double cover him, or you put, safety and a linebacker on him, and you just take him out of the game, and then do your normal good job stopping the run game. And then I don't really know what Penn State's going to do outside of their running quarterback. If Aller is in there, and you double cover their tight end, and they have no run threat at quarterback, then they're not going to be able to do anything. So
yeah, it's very true. The Ohio State defensive line has been disappointing for like 4 years now, even though they're really talented there.
Well, you know what though? You know what?
Much production.
So here's where you're not 100% right. They're bad against
only 99% right.
No, they're good against they're great against the run. Has been great. It's just they aren't good at rushing the passer. So that's a big problem, and it's not just them. It's the fact that we aren't able to effectively blitz. Like if you listen to, did you hear Saban? I think it was last week where he was talking about how you can't just rush 4 guys. That's an antiquated defense. You got to be able to disguise blitzes and send more blitzes. So we did that against Nebraska, and we actually got like 13 tackles for loss. So actually changing up our blitzes actually helped, and I'm interested to see what we can do, because I don't think Penn State has an elite offensive line this year. So
they'll do that against Aller. That will work against Aller.
Yeah.
It's almost like
again another reason. So Aller with a gimpy knee, and us, blitzing and bringing the house, that's again why I'm not worried if Aller is the quarterback.
So the key to the defense is if Drew Aller plays.
Yes, honestly.
The key to the defense.
that's one of the bigger keys, I think. Slow quarterbacks.
That's very true. I'm going down the list. Linebackers, safeties. If you're talking about covering that tight end, safeties probably have to play really well. And I don't know if Ohio State's played anyone with like a really good tight end, have they? I mean, other than Oregon, I think Oregon has a pretty good tight end. But I haven't seen them really. Yeah. And the secondary has to cover. They have to cover Penn State's terrible wide receivers.
Yeah,
so,
again, not worried about that.
What are you going to do if who's that receiver that plays for them that played for Ohio State last year? Very formidable guy.
I don't even think he's Fleming. I don't even think he's starting for them though.
I would laugh so hard if Julian Fleming had a huge day.
He's
what I mean?
Slow. He's so slow.
I would just still it would just be hilarious, because Ohio State might do a great job covering Harrison. Is that the guy? Harrison Davis, something like that. The receiver for Penn State, the one good one they have.
I don't think they have
the tight end. It's really covering those guys really well, and Julian Fleming just comes open.
Their tight end and their tight end, the running game is all they have, and then apparently their backup quarterback as well. So
yeah, very true. All right. Yeah, that's the key. Let's talk about Michigan a little bit.
Well, are we going to do scores at the end?
Yeah, let's just do scores at the end.
Okay, so let's
I'm
do
not
Michigan.
super excited about that for the Michigan.
So before we get into the Michigan thing, I need to know basically, how are you guys looking on your injury front? is Will Johnson back?
I've been Googling Will Johnson for days now, and I can't really find anything. I think they said he's not going to sit out the rest of the year, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's injured, for the rest of the year. Yeah. Because I wouldn't blame him either if he did that. This team is
if they beat Oregon, they could get back into the playoffs. So
they play if they beat Oregon, but I haven't heard anything about Will Johnson. Did I say Will Howard? Will Johnson. Yeah. Excuse me. But I haven't heard anything, so I'm just guessing he's not going to play, or they're just going to have a little surprise and have Will Johnson play.
If Will Johnson doesn't play,
why does Will Johnson want to play against these awesome receivers for Oregon and hurt his draft stock? You know what I mean? And this secondary that can't get lined up correctly. I mean, that's just really terrible. Will Johnson is a game day decision. Yeah, that doesn't give me much faith. Game day decision. It sounds like he's not playing. But I think there's him, and injury-wise, well, Jack Tuttle is retired from football, so that ended quickly. Everyone's hope. Michigan, this is just ridiculous. How flaky is it that Michigan has played 3 freaking quarterbacks? They played all the quarterbacks in their room except a true freshman. And now we're back to the first guy they started.
It is pretty funny.
And all Michigan fans had to actually see all of them fail. All 3 of them fail before we were like, oh shit, okay, we suck. There was always like a glimmer of hope with the next quarterback that like maybe the coaching staff just didn't see something in practice and they were going to shine during the game. And I fell for it almost every single time. I was excited to see the next quarterback, but now we're just going back to Davis Warren, who was, if you look at it, he was definitely the best overall quarterback for Michigan this year. So
the other big concern and question that I have for you is what happened to your running game, and who is your best running back right now?
Well, the best running back is Kalel Mullings.
Is he?
And
because he hasn't been doing
Donovan.
That great.
Yeah, Donovan plays. It's half and half, but for some reason, Mullings the last couple games he hasn't gotten it going, and I don't understand why.
Yeah, so your passing game is better, but then Mullings has been trash now all of a sudden. Like,
yeah, I just don't know.
He was so good.
I don't know.
Early in the year when you were bad, like you were still not great, but he was still good.
If they're going to have in this game against Oregon, Michigan will have to have the running Donovan Edwards and Kalel Mullings will have to go off. Like that's going to have to be how it happens. It's not going to be Davis Warren, on the back of.
Well, the other thing it's going to have to be like Will Johnson has to play. He's going to need a pick 6, and then you're going to need to have your defensive linemen forcing turnovers, like sacking and recovering fumbles and stuff like that. It's going to have to be crazy defensive plays to get you into that game because I don't know how you're going to be, stopping their offense.
Yeah,
especially with Will Johnson out.
It's probably going to be an ugly game, but I'll definitely watch the first half. I mean, I definitely have some. You never know when it's going to happen. I mean, I was thinking this is going to be about the time when Michigan starts getting their legs underneath them, is what I was thinking when I had a lot of optimism earlier. Earlier in the year, like this is about when Michigan is going to get their legs beneath them, and I don't think that's going to happen because I was thinking more along the quarterback and offensive line, and we have the quarterback set, which is not exciting at all. And the offensive line does seem to be getting a little bit more competent, if that makes sense. Are
you sure? Why can't you run block then?
Well, we run block just as well as we pretty much have all year long. And we've been playing better teams.
So are you
Michigan State? Michigan State that's a rivalry game. It's a little different. I mean, keys to the game for Michigan, jet lag. That has to play a very, very high part pretty much with Oregon. I don't think it's going to be enough. Running backs need to run. Offensive line, I think they figured something out a little bit. We'll find out tomorrow because Oregon has a freaking monstrous defensive line. They're nasty.
Well, plus they have the best defensive tackle in the country. So the guy has 37 pressures, their defensive tackles. They got Harmon, I think, they got him from Michigan State. And so like number 2 in the country at defensive tackle and pressures is like 25. So he's that much ahead of everyone else.
He's ridiculous.
And he's the guy that took the ball away from Judkins. I mean, this guy is an
he did the Maurice Claret?
Yeah.
On Judkins?
He's like the best defensive tackle I've seen since who was that really big guy on Alabama like 10 years ago that just destroyed the lines. Like I can't remember what the guy's name was. He was like the refrigerator Perry for defense.
Like a Ndamukong Suh type
yeah,
guy.
Yeah. So he's the guy, he blocked like some big field goal for Alabama back in the day. You don't remember him?
Nah, I probably would if you said the name.
Yeah. But anyway, the guy's
here's the problem.
Is your offensive line weak in the middle? Because if it is, you're in big trouble.
Well, it's got its weaknesses everywhere.
No, is it right tackle?
It's on the left side. I would say they're the strongest because Evan Link on the right side is still a problem. I mean, he's not as much of a problem as he was earlier in the year, but he's still consistently an issue.
Yeah,
we figured out our center. Crippen is the center. He didn't start out, but he is now, and things have worked out a lot better, just overall for the offensive line. Really, the issue and what's most perplexing is defense. Sorry about that.
Outside of defensive line, you guys have just been bad.
No, even the defensive line. Did you see Michigan State running the ball against Michigan last week?
From what I read on the analysis, your defensive line was doing fine. It was just your linebackers that were screwing up. That's why they were running.
I mean, even the defensive line. Now, granted, I should have seen this coming. I was way too optimistic. I think everyone was, but we just expected because they've got how many first round talent? Like 3 is what we were thinking. Jenkins, Mason Graham, and Will Johnson. Well, any defensive coordinator, especially an NFL coordinator, could come in and really put something together.
Josiah Stewart is supposed to go in the first round now too.
Yeah, Josiah Stewart is a stud. But yeah, I think they've lost total 18 out of 21 starters from last year. And they've lost the entire starting defensive line for last year, both linebackers, and they lost 3 secondary players with Mikey Sainer still, and then who's the other safety? Hall.
Oh, Sab.
No, Sab, he left too.
Yeah,
but he wasn't a starter. We lost a lot, and I'm coming to the conclusion that was probably just too much. And even in the back of my mind, when I had that optimism,
losing good safeties is
starters from a
so important.
Should I be worried about that? I was like, nah, we'll figure it out.
You know what's funny is people that didn't watch the Nebraska game closely, I don't think really realized how close we were to losing that game by a couple touchdowns. I mean, there were 2 or 3 plays where the running back got through the initial line and the linebackers, and there was legitimately no one else to beat. And Caleb Downs stopped a touchdown almost, I think, 3 times where he made a play where there was no one else there.
I saw that on the replay.
Yeah,
I watched the YouTube highlights.
In the past, we wouldn't have had that elite safety who doesn't miss tackles, and it would have just been game over. Like
if it was a Michigan game in 2022, it would have been a missed tackle and the guy's gone.
So just having that elite safety. I mean, it's just, you look at all of the good Ohio State teams, we always have a safety that's good enough to, prevent these big touchdowns from happening. And then, the teams that don't get it done, that's really one of the big reasons, not having elite safeties or competent safeties is so important in college football.
Yeah, and Michigan doesn't really. They've got one, but we lost our nickel, we lost our starting corner, and we lost. Why can't I remember the guy's name? I'm actually sickly, so I'm just going to blame it on that. And speaking of being sickly, I think we should do our scores now so we can wrap this up. So give me your score on the Michigan-Oregon game.
Well, so I was thinking that it could actually be a little bit closer, but I'm worried that, if your running game is doing better, I would have definitely been more likely to pick even potentially an upset. But since your running game isn't doing well, I just don't think that the passing game is going to be able to hold up against a good defense, especially when it's not able to really hold up against average defenses. And I think they're gonna force some turnovers with their amazing defensive line and against your average offensive line. So I think that you'll probably be able to make some plays on defense, maybe even get a turnover or 2. But ultimately, I don't see, without Will Johnson, who's going to be stopping those receivers. And they have a good running game too. So I don't know who's going to be stopping any of that. So, I'm thinking they're going to win 28-10.
28-10. Yeah, that's pretty good. Pretty good. I put up James' text here, or his post. He talks about Wink's system. Got a nephew. That's pretty awesome. I'm getting some inside scoop. A nephew on the team. He's saying that it's just too complicated for players bringing in that.
Yeah, James, we've had some defensive coordinators in the past that have done that, where in college, like you get these coordinators sometimes. Like, I don't remember where he came from. Was he an NFL coordinator? Wink.
Wink, yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes you get these defensive coordinators. It's different in the NFL. They can do more complicated things. They bring their complicated system to college, and the players can't pick it up because they don't have as much practice time as NFL players do.
Well, if he's a decent defensive coordinator, he will figure that out and simplify it and make it possible. So let's look at this last half of the year and see what happens, I guess. But if it continues to suck, man, he's really wasting some really good talent on that team. I'm not super impressed with Wink right now. No, but I don't know what your nephew thinks, but hopefully it's positive. But yeah, so 28-10, that's pretty good. And for Michigan, Oregon, I was like looking at Oregon's schedules thinking, oh, who do they play next? Maybe it's a look ahead game. Maybe it's a really big game. And I was like, shit, like Oregon is playing Maryland next week, like at Oregon. And I don't think Oregon has any big games left. They've got like 4 more games after Michigan, and they're all unranked Big Ten teams. And so that's kind of throwing that out. I like your 28-10 prediction because that would allow for Michigan's definitely kicking a field goal. They'll definitely at least get a garbage touchdown. I'm going to say 35-17 because I think Michigan scores an actual touchdown that's meaningful in the game, but they also score another touchdown when a backup quarterback comes in, or not even a backup quarterback. Probably be Davis Warren. He'll come in. I'll say 35-17, and I don't think that Oregon is actually very scared of anything. So, you went dark. You must not like my prediction. I get it.
Hold on. I think the cat got on the wire or something.
That's all right. That's all right. That's just a sign that we should actually wrap this up. Yep, Matt is gone.
Oh my God. This is
all right. Well,
I don't even know what got messed up.
Thanks, Matt, for joining. Thanks everyone in the chat. We hope that Ryan Day loses tomorrow and Michigan wins. Probably neither of those two things happen. But if you like this content, please like.
Hold on, we didn't pick the Ohio State score yet.
We didn't.
No, yes, we're going to do it at the end.
Cute. Okay. Well, this is awkward. I just went through my outro, and you're not on. What? Okay.
Oh, here we go. I think I fixed it. All right, we're back.
Okay. It's your turn then. What's the Ohio State Penn State score?
I'm going to go. No, I'm thinking it's going to be 35-14 Ohio State.
Really? You think it's going to be that big of a spread?
Yeah, I have no faith in Franklin, Drew Aller. I think that I don't know. I think we have a lot of good players. I think that they'll be able to scheme around the new left tackle, and I think that I don't have much faith in Penn State being able to do anything on offense or defense.
I think they'll still have a pretty good defense. I think Ohio State's going to be too much for them. So 35-17, that was your score?
Yeah.
That's my score for the Michigan-Ohio State or Michigan-Oregon game. That's funny. I say Ohio State, they win 24-17. And it's only that close because Drew Aller always seems to come back and score a garbage touchdown at the end of the game when all the pressure's off. He did that against Ohio State. He did that against Michigan last year.
Yep.
I think it's just going to be something like 24-17, like one touchdown. But really, I think it felt like a 2-touchdown lead most of the game. And it's never really in question. That's what I'm guessing. So,
all right.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Matt. Thanks to everyone in the chat. We'll talk to you all later. Please like, subscribe, and share, and we will talk to you guys next week, hopefully, with some fantastic news about one of our teams. Anyway, go Blue.
Go Bucks.